about fears. Let's talk about love. Yeah, I got fears, but I ain't got no love.
But today, my main focus is going to be on why people kill. There's so many reasons, and a lot of times we get wrapped up in, we can't understand how it can happen, especially when it's a child, right? Because sometimes people kill out of anger, but what does a child do that would warrant that wrath? Well, there's some parents, there's some adults and kids who just can't cope with a crying child or whatever it is. They don't have the either mental capacity or in general can deal with that, to them, annoyance. There's so many other reasons though. And we're going to get into how I look at it. Okay, now you heard me before say GSR. Now I know GSR could stand for a lot of things, but in the police jargon, it's gunshot residue. Okay, now whenever we would have a suspected homicide or suspected shooting, we would take the individual and we would do a test on their hands for gunshot residue to see if they fired a gun. Because as you can imagine, when we take them into custody or detain them, they will say, no, I didn't shoot no gun. Well, we do this test. If it comes back positive, we know you're lying. That's how I memorize GSR in murders. Because it's greed, sex, revenge. Now, you could throw in a couple others, but that's how I do it. It's how I memorize it, and that's where most murders fall under. Now, again, there will be subcategories. So, for greed, you have robbery. That's greed. You have business dealings, relationships that go bad. Inheriting of money. Greed falling under I want. Mafia related hits. That is all under greed. Sex, of course. It's rape. It's the fantasy driven. Sexual assaults. Power. Control. To me, that all falls under the sex category. And then lastly, you have revenge, which for me is probably the most common because it involves domestic incidents where you have rage, you have hate at that moment, you have jealousy, and you snap, So for me, how I classify murders is GSR, greed, sex, and revenge. So to illustrate this, I want to give a couple examples. So let's say for greed, I think of Ronnie DeFeo, the Amityville Horror. And there's so many other examples, but what I'm trying to do is think of shows that I have done or that are famous that you will know of. But you can think of other ones that I'm sure where someone kills somebody over an inheritance. They kill their parents because they want the money. Maybe the Menendez brothers. But I haven't looked into that case too much, so I'm not going to say for sure. But DeFeo, okay? There's no demon, there was no spirit, there was no devil. He killed his family out of greed, okay? And of course he was drunk and high as well. That didn't help things. But think of even Old West, like Billy the Kid, and people that killed, back then. Now, I will say that there are examples that fall under two categories, where Billy the Kid, I think, could. He could fall under greed, but also he could fall under the revenge category because the Murphy Dolan faction killed his employer, John Tunstall, somebody that was a mentor to him, and took him in, and look, you know, Billy looked up to him, and they killed him in front of him. So I mean, he went on a warpath. But Billy the Kid also probably killed out of greed, out of robbery, but also revenge. You have Martha Moxley. Okay, I think that falls under two categories. I think it falls under sex, and I think it falls under revenge. Michael being very jealous, very upset with her because he was attracted to her. He wanted her, but she was messing around with his brother Tommy, and I think that created the jealousy that exploded on that night. So, to answer your question, yes, something can fall under two categories. O.J. Simpson, clear case of revenge, right? But kinda, it could fall under the sex category because of the power and the control. But mostly under the revenge because it was a yes, I guess it could fall under domestic, but it falls under a rage, jealousy for sure. So that's just how I look at why people kill. Now, there's so many others, but that's how I keep it straight in my mind. So when you see a true crime case that comes up, try to think of it like that. Right now, think of a case and try to put it under one of those categories. And you'll see that for the most part, anything that you pick will go under it. Think of, no, I'm not going to say that. That's too, you don't want to talk politics or religion. I get it. I almost had a good one. Think BTK. Where would you put him? Greed, sex, or revenge? Clearly sex, right? Fantasy-driven homicides. What other ones have I done on this channel that we know about? Brittany Drexel surely would be sexual in nature. Just saying, anyone that you can pick, you can put under GSR. That's just how I remember it.
Yeah, let's talk about